Chibi, Chubby, Tubby, meow. The Chibi, Chubby, Tubby, meow. The Chibi, Chubby, Tubby, meow. The Chibi, Chubby, Tubby, meow.
Hey everybody! Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. We have another Chibi, Chubby, Tubby pet for you today. We're going to make a cat! If you missed our previous Chibi, Chubby, Tubby pet tutorial, we did an owl a little while ago, and we'll put the link for that video in the description box down below. The pattern is sort of similar for the two animals, so I will move a little quicker with the kitty today than I did with the owl. But having said that, I will still walk you through every step, including his eyes, the embroidery of his face, and his cute little tail. So without further ado, let's grab our hooks, grab our scrap yarn, head on over to the craft table, and stitch ourselves up some Chibi, Chubby, Tubby cats. To make our Chibi, Chubby, Tubby cats, we are going to use a worsted weight or a slightly thicker, chunky weight yarn. You can use either or. You need a scrap amount. This is obviously a lot. Just a small amount of that. And you need a little bit of worsted weight yarn for his eyes. So I'm using white for my eyes today, but if you're making a white cat, you can use orange or yellow or green, whatever you've got lying around. In the middle of each of his eyes, we have a black seed bead. So you're going to need a little black glass bead or something similar. I picked up a package of these at Walmart. You're going to need a needle and thread to sew the beads into the middle of your eye. So a little bit of thread and a needle. We have an embroidered nose and mouth, so a little bit of embroidery floss and a needle with an eye big enough that your embroidery floss can fit through it, so you can do his nose and mouth. And you're going to need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and today's hook is a 4.25 millimeter or a G6. And once you've got all of that, we can get started. We're going to begin with a cinch circle. Once you've chained one to secure your cinch circle, you're going to work 6 single crochets into that ring. So just 6. Once you have 6 single crochets into your cinch circle, grab the short tail, cinch it shut, and we're working in the round, so we're going to work directly into the first single crochet we made. You're going to work 2 single crochet in each stitch all the way around, and at the end of row 2 you will have 12 single crochets. At the end of row 2 you should have 12 single crochets. You can give them a count just to double check. And we're going to increase once more. We're going to go from 12 to 18. So the pattern now is 2 single crochet into the first stitch, and remember we're not joining our rows with a slip stitch, we are working in the round. So 2 single crochet into the first stitch, 1 single crochet into the next. So 2 single crochet into the first stitch, 1 single crochet into the next. You're going to repeat that all the way around 6 times in total, and you'll have 18 stitches at the end of row 3. At the end of row 3 you should have 18 stitches all the way around, and now we're just going to single crochet in each stitch. So for rows 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, so rows 4 to 9, you're just going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around. So every row will have 18 stitches in it, and you count your rows by finding the base circle, that's row 1, and you see where it turns into row 2, that little bump. Go row 1, row 2, row 3, and I'm currently on row 4. You want to single crochet in each stitch all the way around, all the way to the end of row 9. At the end of row 9 you should still have 18 stitches, and you can tell you're at the end of row 9 by counting. So there's row 1, row 2, row 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I've put my last stitch in line with the little bump where row 1 turns into row 2. So if you've ended up back here somewhere, you can just add a couple single crochets and it won't change your stitch count. You'll still have 18 stitches all the way around. Now we can stuff our little cat. So you don't need very much stuffing. In fact, I'm just using some leftover yarn, little yarn scraps today. So you can pull up on your needle and just grab whatever stuffing you're going to use. So you can use stuffing like pillow stuffing, you can use little yarn scraps like I'm using, some crushed up t-shirt, maybe socks. You don't need very much, just enough to make him feel sturdy. Like this little guy, I can give him a little bit of a squeeze. And if you need more, you can go and grab it. Only stuff it so that you can still use your stitches. You don't want it to come tumbling out the top just yet. You can add a little bit more. We just want to start stuffing it. And then we're going to put our hooks back in. And we're going to start row 10. We're going to begin decreasing now. So I'm going to try, maybe I should put all my stuffing to the side so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to begin with a decrease, so we're going to single crochet the first 2 stitches together. So these 2 right here. So I'm going to pick up a stitch and pick up a loop in the next stitch, and then wrap and pull back through everything. So single crochet 2 stitches together. Try to keep that yarn under control. Single crochet into the next stitch. And that's the pattern all the way around. You're going to single crochet 2 stitches together, and then single crochet into the next stitch. So you'll do that 6 times in total, and when you're finished, you'll have 12 stitches at the end of row 10. At the end of row 10, you should have 12 stitches. You can add another little bit of stuffing just to kind of bring your stuffing up to the top. You don't want to overstuff it. And now we're going to close up our edge. So we're going to pinch the edges together. So this is why you want to make sure you have just enough stuffing in there to make him chubby, but not too much that you can't pinch your edges together. So you're going to pinch your edges together. We're going to begin with a half double crochet right through the first 2 stitches. So if we've finished here, our first 2 stitches are going to be this one and the one exactly opposite it. So we're going to ignore the one that our hook is currently in. You want the one just behind it and the one just next to it. So pinch your 2 edges together so that you can have those 2 stitches lined up. Wrap your yarn, and the first one is always a little tricky. Make sure your hook gets through both of those stitches, and we're going to half double crochet. Chain 1 and half double crochet through the same set of stitches. Good. All right, and that is one of his little ears. Now we're going to work through the next few sets of stitches. So there's 3 sets of stitches in between this ear and the next one, and we're going to slip stitch through them. So get both of those stitches on your hook. That'll be the next set in line, and slip stitch, and through the next set, slip stitch, and one more. There's the next set, and slip stitch. That will leave you with a set of stitches and one on the edge. You're just going to ignore the one that kind of turns the corner. These are the only 2 you want to worry about. And we're going to repeat the ear. So through that set of stitches, you're going to half double crochet. So make sure you get through both. Chain 1 and half double crochet through the same set. Just like that. Right. Before we finish, we want to make sure that our ear comes down a little bit. So through the same set of stitches, you're just going to stick your hook through it and slip stitch. This finishes off our little ear. And then you can fasten off. You don't need much tail. And now you can grab your yarn needle, turn your cat around, and you can just weave in that short tail and any other little short tails you might have. If your short tail from the cinch circle you started with is still sort of showing out the bottom, you can weave that in too. Just take a moment And weave your tail in back and forth a couple times, and you can bury the rest of it inside your little stuffed toy. Next, we're going to make his little tail. So you want to put your cat aside, grab your yarn. We're going to begin with a slip knot. And this is a short little tail. You can make yours longer if you want, but we're going to start with chaining 9. And once you have 9 chains, you're going to skip the first chain from the hook, find the second, slip stitch into it, and the rest of them all the way back to the beginning. So you should have 8 slip stitches in total. Once you've slip stitched into all 8 of those stitches, snip your yarn. You want to fasten off, and you want both of those little tails, because you're going to take your cat, flip him over and find the back somewhere near the bottom. Grab your yarn needle or even your crochet hook if you want, and you're just going to, somewhere near the bottom of your cat, in the middle, come down, yeah, right here is fine. This might be a little off to the side. Actually, I think we'll go with that one. You're going to grab first one tail and pull it in one direction, and then underneath the same little bit of stitch, you're going to take your yarn needle or your hook and go back the other way and take the other tail and pull it back the other way. So you've got both tails going in either direction. Then you're just going to tie a couple of quick knots nice and tight so that it doesn't want to undo. And then you can weave in those short tails through some of those stitches and then right into the rest of the body. So I will put both of them through my hook or my needle at the same time. And there we go. Tail complete. Now we need his eyes. Grab your eye colored yarn. In my case, I'm using white. We're going to start with a cinch circle. And into that circle, after you've chained 1 to secure it, you're going to single crochet 6. Once you have 6 single crochets, grab the short tail, cinch it shut, and we're going to join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet we made. Leave a long tail for sewing the eye to your stuffed cat. And fasten off that long tail. You can take a moment with your yarn needle and just weave that short tail back and forth across the back of the eye a few times, and then you can trim any excess. Next, you want to thread up your needle with a bit of thread. You don't need very much. And I like to double up my thread, so you can see I've got both of my thread ends at the end here. And I'm just going to tie a quick knot in the end of both of them. Pick up your eye. This is the front, because you can sort of see all of the little chains running around neatly on the edge, and you can see the little bumpy bits on the back. So that's the back. Look at the back. You can attach your yarn to the back by picking up a little piece of a stitch, and then slip your needle between your 2 threads, and that kind of secures it neatly. Bring your needle through to the front, grab your little bead, you can thread your bead on, and then you just want to sew it down a few times. So right through the middle of the eye. Try to grab pieces of the stitches and don't always come up through the very middle of the circle that you crocheted, because otherwise you might not attach your thread to an actual bit of the stitch. So you want to grab bits of the yarn and bits of the stitches as you sew. And you don't need to do this very much because you've already doubled up your thread. You can probably just sew it 4 or 5 times and that should secure it nice and neatly. Once you've got it sewn down nice and tightly, you're going to flip it upside down, knot it on the back. So I like to just pick up a few stitches and knot always twice to make sure that it is not going to come undone. And then snip it. And there's your eye. And obviously you want to make 2 of those. When it's time to sew down your eyes, place them both on your cat and decide whereabouts you want them. I like mine fairly close to the top of the head. And then you're going to start with one. If you have to pin it down, go ahead. Otherwise, you can hold it in place with your thumb like I do. Thread up your long tail with your yarn needle and then pick up a piece of a stitch along the cat and the whole piece of the stitch along the side of your eye. Pull back every once in a while, make sure you haven't pulled it out of place. And then grab the next piece of a stitch of the cat and the next stitch along the eye. And go ahead and sew all the way around your eye. When you've sewn all the way around your eye, take your yarn and your needle, poke it right into your cat and bring it out somewhere near the top through the space between a couple of stitches. Just let that tail hang and then go ahead and sew on your other eye. And when you finish sewing your other eye down, bring that tail out through the exact same place. We're going to knot those ends together and then weave it back into the cat. Once both of your tails are coming out through the same space, so make sure it's a space, grab them both, tie a knot, make sure you do it twice, and then you can tuck the whole thing back down into the cat and grab it, wiggle your needles back and forth and pull the whole thing into the cat. Acts like more stuffing. Your knots are safely contained on the inside and you don't see anything on the outside. There. Now we can do his nose. In order to make his little nose, we're going to embroider over top of a single stitch between the eyes of our cat. So we're going to start with his nose. We're basically going to fill in a giant triangle. I've snipped about 1.5 meters worth of thread here of crochet floss, or I should say embroidery floss. You may not need that much, but this was sort of the end of a little skein for me, so I'm just going to use what I've got left. Take your needle, decide what stitch sits between your 2 eyes. So if you see this little V space, or there's the one stitch, and there's a little bit to the side. I'm going to fill in this whole V shape right between his eyes. I'm going to take my needle and somewhere below everything, I'm going to push it in and then try to bring it out right where I want to start, right at the bottom of the V or the triangle. Pull most of your thread up, but leave enough, 1 inch or so, to make sure you have enough to knot your yard or your work together before you're completely finished. And now you're just going to fill in that space. So you're going to work, don't pull your work too tightly, but just keep going around and around and around and around that stitch, that crochet stitch in between the eyes. You're filling in a triangle. So always come out in the same little bottom place and keep kind of moving your entry stitches around the top of the nose. So you're filling in a triangle. Take your time. No need to rush here. You want it to be nice and covered. So by the time you're finished with the nose, you can't see any of the cat color showing through. And that also is going to stick out a little bit and give him a little cute nose. So go ahead and work away at embroidering your little kitty nose. Once you've wrapped your yarn or stitched around and around and around that center crochet stitch enough, and you've completely covered it in so you can't see any of the cat color showing through, that's your nose finished. And now we're just going to embroider a simple little mouth. So make sure your yarn is coming out at the bottom point where you would have finished your last nose stitch. And we're going to embroider one stitch going down a whole row. So skip down and just to your left or right a little bit and bring your needle back out through the same point at the bottom of the nose. Remember not to pull too tightly. And then you're going to do the same thing in the other direction. But instead of coming out through the nose this time, you're going to bring your thread back out through that little hole where you entered originally. So pick the spot you're going to enter your needle at for the last mouthpiece, and then just bring it out through the same place that you brought the yarn in originally. Don't pull too tightly. And there's his little mouth, his little grumpy mouth. You can snip your yarn, or your thread here. Leave enough that you can make a nice knot. Don't knot it too tightly because you don't want to pull any of your stitches out of alignment. So, same thing, knot it twice. If you have to put it down, for heaven's sakes, do so. There we go. So you've knotted it nice and tightly. Grab anything, like your yarn needle or the needle you were using as your embroidery needle, and you can just poke your needle back through the same place where both those threads came out. Thread them up. It's easier with the yarn needle because it's got a big eye. And just pull the whole thing back into your cat and wiggle down the ends. And that is it for the cat. You can pinch his little ears, maybe squish him a little bit so that he looks a little more chubby. Oh my gosh, can you tell I love cats? And there you go, one Chibi, Chubby, Tubby cat. Chibi, Chubby, Tubby cats. And that's it for this week, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you had fun making the Chibi, Chubby, Tubby cat along with me. And if you'd like to see more Chibi, Chubby, Tubby animals, let me know in the comments down below. What kind of Chibi, Chubby, Tubby pets would you like to see? We'll see you soon on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have an awesome week. Bye, everybody.